Hi, I'm Dina, and this is my first crochet tutorial. I'm not an expert in crochet, but I do crochet a lot, and I'm always learning new stitches and techniques to improve my skills. So I wanted to do a video showing very basic beginner crochet so other people who have wanted to learn can learn how to read patterns and get started with some basic stitches. So today we're going to start with the single crochet, which is very easy. You can do a lot of things with a single crochet. You can do pot holders, baskets, purses, sunglass cases. There's also a lot of different variations to the single crochet that you can do to make your project look different. So even if it's the only stitch you learn, there are a lot of things that you can make. We're going to start with the dishcloth today, and that's because if it doesn't turn out pretty, you don't like the way you did it, you can still use it as a dishcloth. You don't have to throw it away, but you can put it in your drawer and you can start making another one to practice your single crochet until you get it right. And we are going to use 100% mercerized cotton because it has a little bit of a rope texture to it. The strand doesn't separate when you try to crochet, and I think it's a really easy yarn to learn how to crochet on. And the mercerized cotton that I have found so far is Yarn Bee, which you can get from Hobby Lobby, or Lion Brand 24/7 cotton. You can get that on their website, lionbrand.com, or you can get it at Joann Fabrics. And I think you can get it at Amazon, but I think it's a lot more expensive. The fundamental cotton from Yarn Bee does not come in as many colors as the Lion Brand does, but I think both of them have the same quality. When making a dishcloth, make sure that you get your hook large enough that your stitches aren't too tight, because a dishcloth, when it gets wet, will swell and then it will lose its flexibility. So whatever crochet stitch you make a dishcloth out of, just remember when the product is finished, it needs to have very loose stitches. If you have any questions about anything in the tutorial, comment below and I will respond. And if there is something that you would like to have demonstrated, if it's something I know how to make, I'd be happy to do a video for that in the future. The first thing that you should do before you start your project is decide which type of crochet hook you like to use. And these are just a few of the ones that I have. This is my favorite kind. This is a Clover brand. This one, I like it as well, but the numbers rub off. And this one, the numbers are embedded into the silicone, so you don't have to worry about it coming off. I like these, but again, the numbers rub off, so I had to write on it with a Sharpie, and then that rubs off as well after you've been holding on to it for a while. I don't know if this will rub off or not because I haven't used it very much. I didn't like how pointed the end was on that, so I didn't use it very much. And then this one is great, that the numbers are a little bit like Braille. You can fill them so they won't rub off, but I find that it's very slippery when I'm trying to crochet. So this is the one that I use the most. Here's your crochet needle for weaving in your ends, a little pair of scissors, a measuring tape for measuring your dishcloth size. I like to use the mercerized cotton because the strands of the yarn do not separate while you're crocheting. This is a regular 100% cotton. And you can see that the yarn threads, they separate. So once you get going crocheting, you could stick your hook in there by accident and it goes through the strand, and you then have to take out your stitch and start over again. So I really like to use this for a lot of my projects, and I think it would be really good for beginners to use because it'll take a little bit of the frustration of crocheting out while you're trying to learn. You can pull your yarn from the middle or from the outside edge. I usually pull from the outside edge because a lot of times when you pull from the middle you get a big knot and you just get going on your project and then you have to untangle this big huge clump of knots, so that can be frustrating. To start our project, we are going to do a slip knot. The easiest way I know to show a slip knot is to put 2 loops on your hand. Give yourself a little bit of a tail. Pull 1 loop over. Pull the other loop over all the way around your finger. Grab your tail and pull. Tighten it up. That is your slip knot. To do a dishcloth, we will be making rows of single crochet. We will start our rows with a foundation chain. A foundation chain of 34. And to do a chain, you yarn over and pull through. That's all you do. Keep your thumb moving down the row onto your stitch to keep it from pulling loose. That's 10. Keep going all the way to 34. Now that we have our 34 chains, we will start our first row of single crochets. To start a row of single crochets, you will always chain 1. So we will pretend like this last chain next to the hook is our chain 1. So we will not go into that chain, we will go into the next chain. That's our chain 1, and that is our second chain from the hook. Right here is where we're going to go. The pattern will usually say in the second chain from the hook, and then it will tell you what stitch. So you will see, if you watch other videos, that a lot of people will crochet right into here. I like to do it a little bit different. If you look at the stitches as if they have parts, I think it makes it a little bit easier to know where to put your hook. So for a chain stitch, it has a top loop, a bottom loop, and then the back bump. The back bump is right there. And you can see the back bump between the top loop and the bottom loop. So to start your first row of a project, typically when you go into this spot, as you go down, your project will become very loose and this row gets stretched out, and you will find that there's big spaces along that row. So to help keep the project nice and tight and keep your first row from being too stretched out, I like to crochet my stitch in the first row only in the back bump. So if this is our stitch right here, flip it over just a little bit where we can see the back of the chain. And you can see that back bump is sticking up right there. So if you put your hook into that back bump, so insert your hook, so once you get your first stitch done, you will see the back bumps stand up a little bit, so they're pretty easy to see. So single crochet is insert your hook, yarn over, pull through. You now have 2 loops on your hook, yarn over, and pull through your 2 loops. Pull it nice and tight. We can see the back bumps standing up. Insert your hook into the back bump. You can pull it with your fingernail. Yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2. Tighten it up. There's our back bump. Insert your hook, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2. Tighten your yarn. When you're looking at your project, hold your chain out. You should be able to see all of the back bumps standing up. This is the front of the chain and you don't see the back bump. Roll it over and you can see the back bump looks like little waves across the back. And each one of those back bumps is where your single crochet is going to go into. Insert your hook, yarn over, through, yarn over, and pull through. If you find that it's too difficult to control your chain and crochet into the back bumps, you can crochet into the front of the chain. The only thing that's different is where you insert your hook to start your single crochet. When you get to your last loop, it will be right next to your knot. Get everything nice and tight. That is your single crochet first row. I will give you an example of what the difference is between crocheting the first row in the back bump versus in the front of the stitch. This is a project with crocheting in the front. You can see how loose the stitches are. versus this one. It's up to you which way you want to do it. Okay, we have stitch markers. Before we go any further, let's go ahead and put a stitch marker in that first stitch that we did. Just so we don't lose our place and get confused on where our stitch is. Don't put it in the one that we used as the chain one. Put it in the one that is the actual stitch that you did. And you can put your stitch marker in as soon as you crochet that stitch. I just forgot to do it. Now we're at the end. This is our tail from where we started. To start the next row, you do a chain one and then turn. Okay, we have our chain one and turn. So now for the second row, this is our first stitch right there. And a single crochet has different parts than a chain stitch. The single crochet has, instead of a top loop and a bottom loop, it has a back loop. So when the row is facing you is your front loop, and then your back. To start the second row, you can crochet your tail into your project to hold that over this way, and you can keep your finger on it and crochet with that along your row so that you hide your tail. But I'm not going to do that because I don't want you to get confused with the yarn in the way. So we can weave our tail in at the end. So we are going to start our second row. Second row of single crochet, insert your hook through both loops. Yarn over, pull through, yarn over, and pull through. Your tail might cause your project to get a little bit loose. Try to hold it nice and tight. Once you get your first stitch done, put your stitch marker in so you don't lose track of which your last stitch is. Sometimes when you get to the end, it's hard to tell which one is the chain one and which one is the stitch. So that's our stitch marker and our first stitch. There's our next stitch. Insert your hook all the way to the back. Should have both front loop and back loop on there. Yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through. Pull it nice and tight. So if you look at the rows, your hook is going right there. Go all the way to the end of the row. There is our last stitch. Having a stitch marker really takes the guesswork out of this. If you're new to crocheting, I really recommend a stitch marker. It's very easy to end up putting your last stitch in the chain one instead. Chain one, turn your work, get ready to start the next row. Make sure that when you do that, you are putting your hook in the stitch that you just made, and you're not putting your hook in the chain one. Always make sure it's in the stitch that you just did. Put the stitch marker in. Also make sure that you're going through both of the front and the back loop. Don't accidentally just get one of those. Keep crocheting rows until your measurement reaches the same as your width. Because we did single crochets, the dishcloth will tend to curl up on the edges. It doesn't really do that when you use a bigger stitch. So you just have to, you can iron it if you're just wanting it to look pretty to give it as a gift. So now we measure We're a little over 8 and right at 8. I could do one more row, but I'm going to stop now. I feel like that's close enough. So to finish your work, cut a tail. So when you have your tail from the start of your project, you're going to weave that into your project the same way that you do this. This is a slip stitch. It's another stitch that I don't think really needs its own YouTube video. So to finish this off, I'm going to go right there into that same stitch. And instead of yarning over like you would for a single crochet, you just put it through the loop. That's a slip stitch. Pull the yarn out, pull it tight. Gives it a nice knot. Take your crochet needle, and we're going to weave it through the stitches. You can go in anywhere you want. You don't have to do it the same every time. The key is to just take your needle and keep pushing it through stitches to get it hidden inside there. And then pull. Pull a little bit more just so that it's puckered up so that you can cut it. And then pull. And that is how you weave your end. And you can't even see it. Sometimes when you wash and dry it, you may see the tip of your end that you weaved in stick out a little bit. You can just cut it with scissors if you don't like the way that looks. That is your dishcloth with single crochet.